Welcome to JJ the Wedding Planner Podcast, the podcast for all the lovebirds who are young or young at heart, the non-traditionalists who might like some traditions, los que hablan español e inglés, or maybe more like Spanglish, where the one rule is that we are exclusively inclusive. I'm JJ, and after almost 8 years in the wedding industry, serving couples of all backgrounds, I realized that there was an essential place where I can send them to hear from all the amazing POC professionals that I had met. So, aquí estamos para servirles. After each episode, you will walk away feeling empowered to take on the bits of planning that lead up to your big day, while keeping la tía lovingly off your back. Bienvenidos! Hello again, friends. Thank you for joining us on another episode of your favorite podcast, JJ the Wedding Planner Podcast. I'm so excited for today, and I know I say that for every episode, but honestly, we somehow get blessed with the best guests on this podcast. Some incredible people that I have met either through personal work, through wedding planning industry, or even just on social media. There have been some really incredible people that I've gotten to connect with and now get to bring them on this podcast and share them with you and share their wisdom and share all that they have to give. So today is no exception. We have an incredible person with us. And before we go into her interview, let me tell you a little bit about Reverend Whittney. She is the owner and lead officiant of Rev I Do Officiating, based in Los Angeles, California. She is an internationally ordained minister in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, where she specializes in affirming all love forms to include, but not be limited to, LGBTQ+, interfaith, and non-religious nuptials. Reverend Whittney received her Masters of Divinity from Christian Theological Seminary, which has enabled her to offer an array of services that span from ceremony, officiating, premarital counseling, and pastoral care and direction. This conversation leads us into some really great topics for you to be figuring out what you want specifically out of your ceremony for your wedding day. I know that many times when we think about the wedding, we think of things like a dress or our suit or what we're gonna look like with our hair and our makeup, or maybe even what your venue will look like, what the table setup will be like, what DJ you want to have. We instantly think about all of the hospitality or guest entertainment type things, right? But we don't always go right into the ceremony part of it. And if you've been listening to me for a while or are a current or past client of mine, you know that we always preach that the wedding day, as beautiful and special as it will be, the point of it is that you're starting a marriage. You're stepping into this new season of life. Even if you have been with your partner for many years, it's still this new thing that both of you are stepping into. Beyond just the legalities of like signing on the dotted line and all of that, there's a lot more that goes into it. And so when you're heading into that, we want this time of planning and really your ceremony to be such a special part of your day because it's what you want. And I always say that. I say, F the traditions if you don't care about them. Don't worry about the things that are not important to you. But your ceremony, we want that to be a special time because this is where you are making promises to each other in front of each other's families and friends and community that is holding you. So I'm excited again to hear more about what Reverend Whittney and I were chatting about and all of the ways that you can really make this time special and some things that you should talk about with your partner as you're in the planning process. And again, as a reminder to not just have your ceremony be like the last thing you think about. You want this to be at the beginning, especially when you have an officiant who does this type of work. Reverend Whittney mentions that she also does premarital counseling and pastoral care and direction. And so those are beyond just the planning of the ceremony. This is, again, like planning or mapping out a marriage and what you two want to stand for and what you believe in and who you are as a couple, whether it's religious or not, right? So again, I'm so ecstatic for y'all to hear this podcast recording. And again, this is one of those that I was able to record much earlier. And so you'll hear us mention a couple of things that happened a few months ago. And I'm just now, getting around to putting it out. But anyway, I hope that this is really encouraging to you, and that if you've been postponing, thinking, or planning your ceremony, I hope this is the good little kick in the butt that you need to get on it. And then to also reach out to your officiant if you already have one, or if you don't, to reach out to someone, and when you choose them, to make sure that this is the right fit that will help you walk through your day to the goal, which is your marriage. So anyway, all of that to say, enjoy this episode. Make sure to listen to it with your partner. This is great information that the two of you are just going to want to have some open conversations about. So excited. Enjoy the episode, and I will talk to you all soon. All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode. We are so excited to be with the Reverend Whittney today. I'm so excited to be here. For those of you listening, you have already heard her basic bio and some info about her. But Whittney, thank you so much for taking the time to be here, to be with us, to share some of your wisdom. And let's just get started with a little bit of intro. Anything else that you would like to share about yourself, what you do, anything like that?
Absolutely. So on top of being a wedding officiant, I'm also a mom of an 11-year-old son, Elias. And so that has been a badge of honor that I've worn proudly. And so he is a part of the reason why I do that. And so it's just beautiful to be not only his mom, but also his friend. And I'm the second oldest of 5 kids. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, originally. And so I like to tell people I am a Midwest gal having a West Coast experience.
I love it.
And it has been a blast being out here. I can't imagine being anywhere else. But I do have a thirst for travel. And so I love travel. I'm a true foodie. When it comes to why I do this work and like how I got started, all those things, it's wrapped up in all of those elements of just pure joy. Like what brings me joy?
Yes.
So just to do a quick plug, today being April 7th, Judge Ketanji Jackson just getting confirmed. Like Black Girl Magic is just like streaming all over my newsfeed and all in my soul. And so that I stand on her shoulders. I stand on the shoulders of like Pauli Murray, who is, someone who was an activist back in the 1930s who really didn't get to see this moment happen. And I just read her biography and I'm like, I've chilled. Yeah. That moment where you just see history, you get to read about it. And then now I get to like witness it.
Yes, absolutely.
So all of that is flowing through my veins. So that intro is very much something of, I'm honored to be here. I'm excited to be a Black woman in America right now in this moment. And
absolutely. I love all of that. I love that in a way, podcasts in this way can be a little bit of a time capsule, right? Of today, it just happened. We just got this news. All the beautiful emotions are flowing and also the understanding of the history that it's taken to get us here. And we just love uplifting that in our business, in our company, in the podcast of just saying, we are so much better together. And there is, we were just before we started recording, we were saying it's about damn time. We're a little late. I wish that this would have been sooner, but also here. And, we do get to be a part of this history and being able to live through it. And you with your son, like to get to experience this moment and to just how beautiful that is. So thank you again so much. And I love getting to know a little bit more about you as well. I didn't know you were from Ohio. I didn't know that part. We met out here on the West Coast. So sometimes I forget that people are not from here. But you're from here now.
Exactly. I mean, I pay rent, so I'm locked and loaded.
And this California rent doesn't play. So I'm like, if you're paying rent and you're paying California taxes, absolutely.
This is home, okay?
Right, exactly. Well, awesome. Let's get started. I definitely want to dig in a little bit more of what you're saying of kind of what got you into pastoral work in general. I know you mentioned that, getting to do some of that traveling, some of that played into it. So tell us a little bit more about why you went into like ministry, I guess, in general at first.
Yeah, like, why would I do that? I have actually looked in the mirror and been like, girl, you sure?
You sure?
You sure that's what you want to do? So I would say I started this business, Rev I Do Officiating, in 2020. So my ministry began about a decade before.
Yeah.
And where I was just literally, so it started because I didn't see anyone who looked like me. I grew up in the church. I saw everybody who walked up and down the pulpit, who was up front, who was speaking a word, who had, and I was like, well, none of y'all truly look like me. Like all my intersections didn't and weren't visible. And I remember coming across a meme and it said, be who you needed when you were younger. And that's why my ministry started.
Yeah.
I needed me when I was younger. I needed me in my Blackness, my womanness, my queerness, my audacityness, just all of those things. I needed to see me, and I needed someone to tell me, like, yo, you can do this. God loves you as you are. You are as dope and fearfully and wonderfully made as you are, because God didn't make no mistakes. Like, you are just rocking it. And I needed that affirmation. And I realized that if I needed that affirmation, I know that there's somebody who many will remain nameless.
Yeah.
But they see me wear my collar. They see me at weddings. They see me at churches. They see me doing life unapologetically.
Yes.
And that's why I started ministry. That's when I said yes to the call. I started out as a licensed minister. I actually started my own church along with 5 other people back in Indiana. Yeah.
Oh.
And it was a blast. It was a moment where I got to find like-minded individuals where we truly came together and said, yes, we can do this, and we can do it gloriously. And we can just have not only a ball, we can also struggle together, because there were moments when it was just us in the congregation. We were like, well, God said when 2 or more gathered, so we made the requirement. But
really, we're good.
Nice,
we met the minimum. We're okay.
The minimum. And so that church was just a beauty to take part in, roll my sleeves up, and really have a great start in what does ministry look like when you are the janitor, the pastor, the minister, the social director, the this, the that, like all of it. It was truly humbling, and it was also affirming in the same light. And as I was turning out that ministry, this social action piece of mine just has always been there. And so those two were able to fuse together. And so my ministry then morphed into social justice as a faith organizer around LGBTQ issues.
Yes.
And so then I'm exercising a social justice arm while also being able to be a minister. So it was my ministry of social justice. And as I'm organizing and as I'm present, with, my ministry, that's when I ran into some dope people with Christian Church Disciples of Christ.
Yes.
And they were like, you want to go to seminary? And I was like, you gonna pay for
it? That is the real question, because it's easy to say, sure, I'll go, but who's paying? Because that's not joke money.
It's not joke money at all, especially when you're talking about 3+ years, of continuous study. And that's if you're full time.
Yeah.
And so that means not working, but what did that mean for me? Yeah. And God opened up the doors where not only I was a part of, so with Christian Theological Seminary, which is where I got my degree, they gave me a scholarship that I was a part, actually a fellowship, I was a part of a cohort where there was housing, there was, the stipend and, just coverage of everything. So I was like, okay, Lord, so you're basically saying I would be the reason why.
Yep. Isn't that a trip? Absolutely. Right? It's like, well, at this point, if you don't do it, it's just your own fault. It's like, I gave you everything you needed.
Because you said who gonna pay for it, and God said I will. Well, how am I work? Well, you get a stipend. Well, where am I live? Well, we're giving you housing. Well, what about my books? Here goes some. What? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And I know it's not a religious, I'm doing air quotes, religious podcast, but I love hearing this background, this information, because I think in addition to as business owners, there's a lot of that feeling of, how am I going to do this? Where's this money going to come from? How am I going to figure this out? And there's this constant feeling of being provided for and being just take the next step, just take the next step.
And that really is what has happened. And to like kind of morph into like, so I got my Masters of Divinity. And then I said, okay, what now?
Yeah.
What now? What next? And the what now, what next brought me to California with my family. And coming here to California, I'm now like, okay, y'all expensive. Y'all expensive. And y'all expensive.
Yeah.
Y'all got like
all three of those.
Three. One of those moments where my faith being exercised in that moment of trying to decide whether to go to seminary, I had already exercised that muscle and was provided for. So I knew the experience of believing in God and believing and saying, look, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's what's been happening here. Started my business in 2020, top of the pandemic.
February 20. We're about to get into that because that's insane. I mean, it's heartbreaking how many businesses had to close or solopreneurs had to stop just because of finances, right? For so many people in the business and the events business, that was their sole income. And when we're completely shut down and weddings aren't able to happen and people don't know where their money is going to come from, we know so many people had to shut down. So how did you get started at that time? And how did it morph from going, having your church, then moving, and then going into this specific like niche of ministry work?
Yeah. And so the missing link that I had omitted previously was the fact that I got married. And so my spouse is military. And so that's what brought us to California.
Oh, okay.
And so then I was just, I'm here in California. I'm like, okay, what do I want to do? How do I want to move forward with my gifts, my skills? And the question kept coming up, do you want a church? Do you want to continue or start anew and plant again? And no.
Like, that sounds like a lot of work again.
That sounded like I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt and it's handing up right over there and I'm gonna let it sit over there.
It's a souvenir now.
It's a whole souvenir. It's like, okay, check. And so it really, my love for people, my ministry background, my love for travel, and California being just the space for 365 business of that would be mine.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to worry about shoveling snow to go to a wedding. Like right. I don't have to, what's a snow day here, right?
They literally don't exist.
They do
we
not
don't know
exist.
What that is.
What is that? And so for me, how I survived with the support of my family. I survived with the support of them saying, go, take that leap. I say, okay, fine. So I was up there, filed my paperwork and everything, did a DBA. And then I did my first wedding, February 14th. It was a vow renewal, and I was so overdressed and so underpaid, and I loved it.
It's always like that in the beginning.
Oh, I loved it. I said, well, I'm quite overdressed for this moment because it was a beach vow renewal with just the three of us.
Aww.
And it was a surprise vow renewal, so it was just so cute. But I came in like my whole vestments. I was hot. My makeup was running. I'm patting myself dry. My neighbor, her 11-year-old daughter, like has a camera. So I said, hey, I'm gonna give you $25. Come take these pictures, ride with me. And so that's how I started. I picked up my neighbor's 11-year-old. She got in the car. I said, hey, dress in all black, and you are my apprentice if anyone asks.
Yes.
And she said, okay.
A young entrepreneur, we're raising them.
Listen, and she's like, okay. And her and I drove down, And it was glorious. She took all the photos. They were absolutely everything. Because they were from her.
Yeah.
It was so adorable, the angles that were there, but that were missed, but that were perfectly just her.
Yes.
And so the newness that we both brought to the situation and the excitement and the giddiness and the joy, that all exuded through that ceremony, because that couple was like, wow, this was perfect. This was just what we wanted, just what we needed. And it was funny because afterwards they were like, no, it wasn't afterwards. It was right before. Because they were celebrating and they're like, you want to take a shot? I said, yes, I do. Yes, I do. I'm real nervous.
Right.
So yes, I do. So not only was the Lord there, Don Julio was there too.
All the spirits.
All the spirits.
Spirit and the spirit.
The spirits and the spirit, right? And so I laughed at that moment. It was just the most human interaction, and I just relished in. I mean, it was their excitement, the surprise on his face, her, it was just, we were being human together.
Yep.
And a momentous occasion.
Yeah.
And I said, I want more of that. And that's how I was like, I'm gonna keep going. And when the shutdown happened, because right after I did that wedding, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this. I had my business card, I had all this stuff. And then it said, y'all ain't going nowhere. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how did I just start a business and now I gotta like stop?
Yeah. Yeah.
And God said, you don't have to stop. You just have to dig deeper. And so for me, that time between February and August, because August 8th was the time that I did my first outside wedding after the during the pandemic. I had created a website. I got familiar with, some art, some Canva has been my friend.
Oh my God, yes.
I mean, I have.
I'm not a graphic designer. Canva can figure this out.
Listen, I became a graphic designer, a web designer. Like, I got clothing shipped. I was preparing for when I was going to be unleashed again.
Yes, I love that.
And it was glorious because when the phone call came, it was a lesbian Latinx couple from Florida. They were flying into Yosemite for their wedding. And their best friend found me and said, hey, got my best friends. They're my dear sweethearts. I need somebody who's going to take care of them and everything that goes along with this wedding.
Yeah.
Are you in? And I said, not only am I in, I'm ready. I'm going to beat you there.
I will get there first.
And I actually did. My family and I took a road trip from Los Angeles to Yosemite and made a camping trip out of it.
Love.
In the midst of all of that, I was able to, we were socially distanced. You don't get any more space than Yosemite.
Yeah, you're literally in the wilderness.
Literally
clean oxygen.
Clean, all of that. Yes. And so it was beautiful to morph my business into what the moment needed and what the moment called for. Yeah. And that's what was happening. At first I was like, oh, these grand weddings of 100 plus.
Yeah.
There were 7 of us. And I loved it. And I said, well, my numbers are increasing. It was 4 of us before. Now we have 7. I said, look, girls moving on up.
Still in the right direction. Still in the right direction.
Still in the right direction. Yeah. Gosh. And so I used that lockdown period to get shored up, to build on my foundation, to get familiar with things that I wasn't familiar with. And so I didn't have to ask someone, hey, can you make this change on my website? I could go in and do it.
Boom.
I didn't have to say, hey, can you make this flyer for me? Or you make this post for me? It was literally, I became all of it.
Yeah.
And that has been the role, as a solo entrepreneur, you're just like,
oh yeah.
It goes back to church planning. I was the janitor, the this, the that, all of it. And so it was beautiful because I feel like everything that I had been through was basically setting me up to be able to sit in this.
Yes.
And handle this well. And so it's been great.
Yeah.
And I've gone from 4 to 7 to 12 to upwards, so the number of guests and people I've been able to connect with has increased exponentially. It's been a wonder to just stick with my dream Even when it was a lockdown, and I said, no, I'm gonna finesse this lockdown.
Yes.
Stick with my dream. Even when they said, like, you gotta socially distance, I said, I still look cute in a nice mask.
Yeah.
Look, you know.
We can make a match. That's fine. I can make it work.
I can adjust. You said your colors are fuchsia. Got a fuchsia mask.
Got it.
You know.
Absolutely. And there's so much we can go into that. I feel like we could do a whole entire episode in general about business in the pandemic. Maybe that will be a future episode. But truly, to say, instead of saying, oh, well, the shutdown happened, this must not be the right thing for me to get into. Sometimes, and I'm going to say this because I've dealt with this personally, is that we're so in our own movie, in our own world. We're so selfish that we think the whole pandemic happened to us, right? And it's happened to everybody. And so instead of saying this pandemic happened, so it must be a sign only for me, it's actually more of a test in a way of, are you going to see it through? Are you going to make it? I know for a lot of people it's a very real thing and they had to shut down. I can completely understand that. But for those of us who were able to just say, no, I'm just going to keep digging in, getting ready, preparing myself, building the business, doing it. So like you said, when you're unleashed, then it's like, it just boom. And we saw that happen.
And that's exactly what happened.
Absolutely. And things opened up and it was just boom, one thing after the other. And it was at that point, it was kind of like, well, if you're not ready for the flood, you should have been preparing, because there was a lot of people who were not ready for that. We didn't build our boat, right? The flood happened and some of us got over.
We're like, whoa, look, we on a, just a little raft. You're like, okay, what? No.
Like, do I at least have my life jacket on? Because I'm not a great swimmer. It was a flood. Sure.
It was. And it was so interesting because that's when I knew I was doing what I have been called to do, because so many people I've engaged with a very similar situation around who's going to care and be intentional about my date, my union, my wholeness with my partner.
Yep.
And are you ready to hold? I was able to answer them and say, yes.
Yeah.
I will beat you there. Yeah. That's my motto. Look,
it really is.
I'm going to beat you there. So I'm going to wait on you so you can walk down the aisle to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got you from here.
I love that. And that actually leads right into what I wanted to talk about next. Is just as couples are getting ready for this huge day. And as a planner, I see it happen all too often that people are thinking about the party and the favors and the dance floor and the flowers and the dress and
they forget about us.
And they forget about the literal most important part, the ceremony, right? Because I think a lot of times, and I've also seen that, is people get so nervous for that part because a lot of us aren't used to having 150 pairs of eyes on us and giving our soul and saying these vows. And so we kind of choose to not think about that until we absolutely have to. So my question is, for those who are listening, and I'm praying they're listening to this early on in their planning, but how does one prepare to have this conversation with an officiant? So maybe they already have their venue booked, maybe they've got the logistics set, but how do they start looking for an officiant? What do they ask? I know that there's a lot of different types of officiants, right? Who work specifically with lots of different people, do ceremonies a certain way. So where do we start? Where do they start?
Where do they start? With me. That's where you start.
Yes. We're going to link her Instagram. Absolutely.
I would say you start with each other because you want to know what you want. Just like you came together and said, where do we want to get married? Just like you came together and said, who's going to be a part of this day?
Yeah.
Who's got, and so I find that this moment, this choice of an officiant is something that should be done together. Yeah. And the conversations I invite couples to have with one another is, who you want in your pictures forever?
I love that. Absolutely. Because that's the thing that lasts forever. Your pictures.
Forever. And it's one thing that, like, the venue, yes, of course, the venue is there in your pictures, But like the venue owner is not in your pictures. The wedding planner is not in your pictures. Like the florist, the dressmaker. I know, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm like, we're supposed to be in the background. You don't see us. We're
exactly.
invisible.
Most of the work that happens behind the scenes. And the question I always ask couples is, who do you want standing up there with you?
Yes.
And when you can come together and say, I want someone up there who is this, and this, whatever your criteria might be, when you put that down on paper, your search gets a lot easier.
Yeah.
Because then you can filter. I have people who come to me and say, look, I wanted someone who's clergy and affirming and this and that. And I'm like, well, yes, I'm clergy. Yep. I'm affirming. I'm this, I'm that, I'm all of it above.
Yeah.
You know? It
just works perfectly.
And so it's just one of those things where it's like the conversation starts with the couple and get honest with yourself, you know? And, you know, some people feel like, oh, I don't want to be too selective. And then I feel like I'm either racist or sexist or anything like that. And I always tell couples, you know, what do you want?
Yeah.
I know I had one couple said, I want someone up there who reminds me of my grandmother, right? You know, like that type of stuff. Yes. You know, I want someone up there who has a sense of humor, but can also hold the severity and the sincerity of this moment. And one lady said, I want that dress that you had in that picture in mine, you know.
Aesthetics are important. Yes.
Exactly. It's all of it. So whatever it is that you want to complete the look, complete the vibe, complete the energy, that's who you choose.
That, I mean, just I'm like, that basically answers all my questions, because I mean, and that is the most key thing, right? And people think, well, any officiant can just write a ceremony. Well, yeah, any officiant could write any ceremony, but can the right officiant write your ceremony? Right? Every single couple is so different. And I try to ingrain that into all of my couples as much as possible. And I tell them the same thing. No one's going to remember your flowers. No one's going to remember the color of your linens or what song they started dancing to. They're going to remember what was said and mostly what was felt. And in the ceremony, especially, like, that's such a special moment. And that is truly when this all happens. The wedding day, it's big, it's fun, it's special, it's exciting, but you're starting a marriage. You're starting this partnership with a whole nother human being. And you're saying, I want to do the rest of my life with you. And that's such an important thing to hold. And then to have the right person hold that space with you and for you and together. It's just it's so beautiful and so important. And so once people are thinking about their officiant, maybe they've already booked someone. I'm sure, you know, each officiant has their plan or their strategy, how they work, but how do they figure out what type of things they want in the actual ceremony? Because I know there's so many different traditions, whether cultural, societal, things that look cute in pictures. Where do we start with all those things that we can do?
Absolutely. Again, I tell couples, y'all have more power and more creativity than you think you have. Pick each other's mind, you know, do it separately, do it, you know, a little activity of like, if you can just do the ideal ceremony, do it individually and then come together and be like, oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, what about this? And so it's, you know, getting creative. I always tell my couples, have fun. What is going to make you smile when you get up there? Yeah. What is going to make you feel the aura that you are trying to portray? So if that is wearing or jumping the broom that your great grandmother jumped, you know, is that go get that broom, right? Is that incorporating your, you know, your recently deceased father's favorite poem in your ceremony? So yes, we can do a moment of silence, but did you want to bring his words in?
Yeah.
You know, okay. So you have, my favorite was when there was a blended family coming together. And the male of the couple, it was a heterosexual couple, and the wife had a daughter. And I said, what do you want to say to her, to someone you are about to become a parent to?
Yes.
So do you want to do vows to her? Do you want to do, exchange rings with her? Do you want to bestow all that love that you were doting on her mom to her?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, and it's just like,
I'm getting chills.
like, that's what you put in your wedding. Yeah. You put your story in your ceremony. And I think so many people feel as though they're about to do something anew. And I look at your wedding ceremony as a coming out party.
Yeah.
As y'all come in together. If you're funny, don't get up there and try to do serious.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like if you are colorful, don't try and only wear black.
Yes.
If you are someone who is very outspoken, don't simply want me to walk you through your vows. Say your own. And I had a writer. Sure. We can just do I do words and through feeling through words. You sure you don't want to take that on? and she was like, but what if I get nervous? I said, then I got you. Because when you get nervous, I step in. Whether it's a pat on the shoulder, a back rub, a moment to say it's going to be okay. I do my work. I tell them, get to the altar, get to me.
Yeah.
And I'll take it from there.
Yes.
You get to me, you walk down however pretty, however fine, however fly. You make it down that aisle to me, and I've got you from here on.
Yeah.
Whether that's direction, whether that's a pause. I mean, there have been some, I've had ceremonies where I don't say anything until they give me the nod.
Yeah.
Because to take that moment in, like they're seeing something for the first time.
Oh my gosh.
To just have that moment. I'm going to let y'all have your moment. We going to watch y'all watch each other.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Like that, where it's like, I got you. I've had people who were like, oh, do you think, I should really say yes? You know why? Because it's your day. It's your moment. It's your moment. Absolutely. I've had people who have stumbled and I have let them know it's going to be all right. And we just going to start it over.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just going to start it over. Look, there's nothing that is going to prevent you from getting married at the end of my time with you.
Yes.
Okay? So I don't care what happened. If the flower girl decided to go left, if your brother forgot the ring, look, here, take mine, hold mine, and use mine for right now, because we're going to get you married.
Yes. Absolutely. I very jokingly, but also very seriously have said that to my fiance a couple times during this whole pandemic, right? Because we've had to postpone a few times. And I'm like, at the end of it, as long as we get married, it's the two of us and an officiant, I'm good. Like, I'm good. That's it, right? Because as a wedding planner, of course, I love all of the extra beautiful, fun things. But at the end of the day, it's us. It's us.
Exactly.
And I want to really go back to that moment, what you're saying of like, get to me and I'll hold this space to you, because I, as a planner, I'm like, I can hold all this other space for you, right? I can make sure that all the things you've planned for, all the things you've ordered, all the things you wanted, I can make sure all of that is held and taken care of. So you're not thinking about those things. But I've always had this feeling of when the couple starts going down the aisle, I'm like, I can't hold them anymore. I'm like, oh, it's like letting something go, letting something fly. And so for me, I mean, I just end up loving my couples so much because I spend so much time with them, right? We get to know them in this really beautiful, intimate way that not a lot of people understand what that is like. But I think our two fields that we're in as an officiant, as a planner, you get to know them in this personal way. And I'm always just like, oh my God, okay, here they go. And they just go. And so for me to feel like now they're being sent off into a person who's going to hold them when they land on the other side of that aisle.
Them on the other side. And absolutely.
It's so special because, because of so much of the hurt, of the pain that can come from some of these really bad, I don't even know what other word, traditions, and a lot of things that society has done to our different communities. And to know that my couple, whoever beautiful, perfect beings that they are, they're being held on that side on such a special day, on a day that we've had to fight for a lot of us, for the LGBTQIA community, to know that they're being held it's just so beautiful.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You know, I hadn't brought this up before, or mentioned that I was going to talk about it, but just,
go ahead.
It's just such an important piece to the day, you know, and I think the biggest thing that I want people to listen and hear and take away today is that this day is for you, right? And that it's you get to plan how you want to feel, and who around you gets to hold you on this day. And so to really make sure that you have the right person, you know, the people who drop off your flowers, they're not as emotionally invested in you, you know, but the person who's holding you in this moment, in this sacred moment, they're going to make a big difference. The words they say, the way they walk you through it, but also the energy that gets held.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, for me, it brings much more light to the statement to have and to hold, right? Because not only are they doing that to each other, like you said, we as vendors are part of their love story in ways that we get to do that as well.
Yeah.
There's an exchange that happens there. Like, they're making a marital contract. We've made some other contracts, but there's a contract that says, I've got you. I will hold you. I will care for you. I will affirm you. I am who you can lean on.
Yeah.
Because, and holding couples they don't even always have to get to me down the aisle for that hold. I mean, I have come to many, weddings and somebody freaking out. Somebody's not okay. Somebody like, hold on, what did I just swipe my card on? What did I disagree to? What's going on? And I get to show up, and that's where my ministry of pastoral care kicks in. That's where my history of chaplaincy comes in. That's where my love of people come in. And I get to hold them however they need to, whether that's through prayer, whether that's through jokes, whether that's through ministry of presence.
Yeah.
They just need somebody to sit there and breathe with them. And then I get to ask them, you ready?
Yeah.
And they get to answer me truthfully, because I won't move until they're ready to move. Somebody on the couple side.
Yeah.
Not as a spectator trying to withdraw. I'm pouring in like, what you need. And so when people say, oh, I can always get my cousin to officiate, I said, you absolutely can.
Yeah.
You absolutely can. Go ahead. Make sure she wear that red dress that she was trying to have you wear. Look. Complete the look. But just know that when you invest in your love story with me, there is much more than a script being read. There is an accompaniment that happens from the moment you say, yes, let's do this. I am on your side as a union, all the way down through and even past the aisle.
Yeah.
Because after you say I do, you still got to come to me for my signature.
Yep. That's right. It's not legal till it's signed.
It ain't over to the officiant signs.
That's
okay?
Right. That literally needs to be the new wedding slogan.
It does, because it ain't over to the officiant signs. And even after that, there's a follow-up of how was it for you? Down the line, I'm checking in.
Yeah.
How you doing? And one of the things that has allowed me to truly get the joy of loving on them and being with them is my premarital counseling. Because talk about intimacy, talk about knowing someone's story. When premarital counseling happens to a couple, or I, complete premarital counseling with a couple, I literally have all the couples that I do premarital counseling with, they have now transitioned into personal friends.
Oh, yes.
I mean, so many are like, there's the professional Instagram. This is, my professional world. And I find that when I do premarital counseling with, not all, but a lot of my couples, they're like, okay, so when we going out to dinner? Look, they're like,
you're stuck with us.
All of that stuff.
Like, we're stuck with each other. You're stuck with us now too.
That's what is said afterwards. We now family. You'd have been all in my Kool-Aid.
Right. Like, I can't tell you all of this and now just let you go into the universe. We're going to stay friends.
We don't stay friends because, I mean, this is what's being built.
Yes.
And it's community being built. It's joy being cultivated. It's people being not only affirmed, but also held in the space of when they don't feel their best.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I literally had a couple I was doing premarital counseling with, and two one of them said, I'm scared. I don't know what to do because I like you now, but what if we get married and I don't like you no more, you know?
It's true, right? These are real questions that come up.
These are very real questions.
Yeah.
And I said, all of that is held safely here.
Mm-hmm.
There's no topic that is off the table when it comes to premarital counseling, whether it's finances or sex or blended family or home ownership or children or all of it, communication styles. I'm all in everybody's business. And as I'm doing a deep dive into their life, we get to come out on the other end and they're resurfacing with skills. They're resurfacing with coping mechanisms. They're resurfacing with new ways and new tools on how to engage one another and finesse the hell out of their love story.
Yes.
And so to be an officiant now is probably the coolest job that I could ever have. And I sit on the words that my mom said to me. She said, if you love what you do, you never have to work a day in your life. And I don't work.
Right.
What I do. Right.
Absolutely. And going back a little bit to what you had said at the very beginning of loving the travel, loving the new locations, like all of that gets built in for us in getting to be a part of couples' days. It's like, are you down the block from where I live, or are you in Yosemite, or are you in another part of the state, or are you in a whole different country and we're doing a destination wedding? Like, you get to bring part of who you are to their day and blend those really beautifully so that it isn't a generic person just saying words. It isn't a family member who doesn't necessarily understand how to hold space like this. It's a person who obviously is a professional, knows what they're doing, knows how to hold space, knows how to hold the sacredness of it and keep it lighthearted when needed. All of these little things, they build up to something so much bigger. And so
they do.
I really hope people are hearing that. Yes, of course you could have a family member do this. There's nothing wrong with that. I've had many people, that's how I started my business. I was my cousin's bridesmaid and I coordinated for her. But there's also a difference when you have a professional who knows what they're doing and knows how to craft your day in such a specific way. And your ceremony that gets to be, it's the start. It's the start of this new life. Even if you've been living together, maybe you already have kids together, right? It's still, you're marking something in this relationship. And I can just imagine what that must be like to do that with you and all that you bring in.
Yeah. So one story that always sits in my soul that I just say, whenever, imposter syndrome tries to creep up, I just go back to this story. Like, girl, you did the damn thing. Right. So I reached out to this couple reached out to me. We had the conversation and they loved me. They said, well, it's between you and someone else. They said, this is your price point and hers is lower. Would you be able to match it? And I said, not every officiant is for every couple. And so unfortunately, that is not what I do. I don't match pricing. However, just let me know if I'm the officiant that fits with you. Hours later or whatever, however much time passed, he called me. He said, okay, we're going to go with you. And I said, well, what changed your mind? He said, the fact that you believed in yourself enough to not let me haggle you out of your work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Said, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yes.
So they booked me for a destination wedding in Cabo. And beautiful family. It was a blended family. So it was a young girl. She's about 7 years old. And on the day of the ceremony, she has a mental breakdown. Like she is like, this is just so much. And I can only imagine just all these people in a different country having had to do all these things. She had just recently taken a COVID test too at 7. So she's like,
oh my gosh,
so much. I just talked to her. And so her and I built that small relationship. And so on the day of the ceremony, she would walk down with no one else but me. She was like, no. Well, would you like to walk with me? I go first. We can open it up. And she just nodded. Still tearful, but she nodded. And we walked down together. She stood beside me when it was her turn to kind of do her thing. She did it, but she was next to me.
Yeah.
And after the ceremony, we go to the reception and have a great time. She sat on my lap. I was like, I'm sitting with you at the reception. And it was just one of those moments where she just was not.
Yeah.
And after that ceremony, and after that time with the couple, they came to me and said, thank you. And I was like, I'm sure, y'all did a great job with your, they said, not with the ceremony, you were beautiful, but with our child.
Yeah.
They said, you held not only us, but our child, not only the guests, but our child. And they kept going back and they said, when she mattered to you, that's when we knew we chose well.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I do. I make sure that not only the couple feel safe, affirmed, and well, but all those associated with them in my reach.
Yes. Yes.
And so that is the story that I sit back on and say, if it was not me, how would that have transpired?
Yeah. Yeah.
If it was not me, how would that have gone forward? And I'm not saying I'm the end all be all, but I am saying that I'm really damn good at what I do.
Absolutely.
Because I love people, because I care. And when people are like, oh yeah, everybody's like loves people. No, everybody don't love people.
No. I have met some people who don't love people.
Don't love people.
And that's fine. Just don't work with people. It's like,
completely fine. But just know that that is something that I am bringing to my servant. It's not written in my contract that I will be there to support your 7-year-old when she has a breakdown. But in getting to know me through our conversations, you'll know the energy that I will bring to your day. And that energy says, I will take care of what makes sense to you.
Yes. Yes.
Whether that is me over here trying to help so this thing doesn't fall down on us, or if that's me consoling, a distraught 7-year-old.
Yep.
I am there.
Yeah.
How can I help?
Absolutely. And I don't know that there is a way to write that down anywhere.
Exactly, right?
Other than to hear these stories and to get to know a person. I always suggest to have a call with every single vendor, especially your officiant, your photographer, your planner. These are the people who will be a huge part of your day. Your photographer is also with you all day long. They're going to capture those moments that you want them to capture. Your officiant, they're going to know your family. Your planner is going to know how to deal with the family dynamics. All of these professionals, have conversations with them. Ask them, what's the craziest story? What is the wildest thing you've experienced? What is the moment that you really loved your job? Asking them, asking us these questions will help share these types of stories where you're right, we can't put that in a contract. How do we write that in a contract? I'm great with
I will
people.
console
Your grandma will love me.
Exactly, right? It's like,
oh my God, I don't know how else to say that other than to say we love what we do. We love our couples and getting to know them in the process. And that's what I always say is I start from the very beginning, whether it's full planning or coordination. I start from the beginning because I want to know what's important to them on the day of, when they are doing something, when they're up there at the altar with you and I'm having to deal with a situation over here. How can I deal with this situation in their best interest? How would I respond that they would want me to respond? And so getting to ask these questions to all of the vendors, but especially the ones who hold and have such a big role on the actual day of, I think that's so vital because it could completely change how your days go. You can have the most beautiful wedding, plan everything perfectly. But if your officiant or someone who has a lot of power doesn't know how to handle your 7-year-old daughter or how to just help console, how to help be with her, things can go off track, right? Even when everything else is perfect, all of the little pieces matter. And none of them are little when we really think about how it affects the day.
And that's why when couples say like, oh, I want to book your services, I said, talk to me first.
Yeah.
I am very much a fan of you booking me.
Yeah.
Because I know I know what you're about to get.
Yes.
If I could book me to do, my wedding,
right.
I would do it. Right.
I know what I bring. Yes.
I want you to know what I bring.
Yes.
I don't want you to just check off a box. I want you to know what I'm bringing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that so many people are like, particularly like my friends, they're like, well, why don't you just let them just purchase online? And I said, because I am not I'm just not, it's not a quick thing. I'm not a fast food restaurant. Push a button and boom.
Yep.
It's, are we a fit? And when I say, are we a fit? Do I want to work with you?
Yeah.
And do you want to work with me?
Yes. Yes.
Energy is matching, or am I too much for you? Because I've had couples who I've been too much for.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is okay.
That's all right. Yep.
And that's where I have a network of officiants where I'm just like, you know what? Getting to know your story, it sounds like I may not be the best fit for this day. I know somebody who might be.
Yes.
And that's why I love living and working in community of wedding vendors who I can say, hey, such and such, they need blah, 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 blah. Who would you recommend? Or are you available?
Absolutely.
And that's what's also a great network, a great moment is the network that I've been building. I mean, like me, you, right?
Yes.
You know?
Right.
Like, look.
Yes.
You know, what do you think? And what about, you know?
Yes.
And that's what I love. It's the communities that we build. It's the relationships that we build. And we do it because we love it.
Yeah.
And I have got a particular wedding officiant where we go back and forth all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
He'll say, I can't, but I know somebody who can. And I'll say, you're damn right. I can do it. You know,
you're like, I can hold that one.
I can hold that one. And then vice versa. I mean, it's not even I scratch your back, you scratch mine. It's I'm in such awe of your work.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And the relationship, the chemistry between the couple and the vendor is so important. And that's what I try to do as a planner is I want to match the right personalities, the right life experiences, the right whatever, so that I know that my couple is taken care of. And obviously officiating is one of the most important pieces. And I know in some places, like people who get married in specific churches, they, work with a specific pastor, and we're not saying they're bad. We're saying
no.
Even if it's you just get who you get at this location, how can we still make this a really beautiful time for you? What kinds of things do you want to ask your officiant so that you can have the best day on that day, right? And it's sometimes things are not in our hands. Most times they are. That's one of the things I love about having a business down here in Southern California is that you kind of have all of the options, right? Where do you want to get married? The beach, the mountains, the desert, in a ballroom, in an art studio, and literally anywhere, in a parking lot, in your backyard. I mean, you in a tree house.
All of it.
You can do it anywhere.
Anywhere.
And because we have these options, we want to make the right one. We want to make the right choice. And so
absolutely.
I really hope people hear that, and just hearing what to ask, what to look for, what to feel for more than anything, right? Because it just makes such a big difference. Is there anything else that you would want couples to hear, to know, to think about as they're in this process?
Yes. I actually just said this to a couple the other day. I said, how you plan your wedding can provide a benchmark on how you live your life married. And I'll go into detail on what I meant. And I said, because they were like, well, my mom wants this. And my sister, she said that I should. And my cousin's gonna want. Yeah. And I was listening. And then I asked, are you finished? And they were like, huh? I said, because it sounds like you are not showing up on your day. And so if you don't create boundaries now for your wedding and this process of planning, what is that going to look like after you say I do and you have your first child, you buy your first home, you're just living life, but your sister wants this, your mama wants this, your cousin wants to be in this. Like, when are you going to set those boundaries? Now, when planning your wedding is the perfect time to practice. Setting boundaries, asking yourself what you want, leaning into joy when it's like, I want that. Go get it. Talking with each other, communicating. I mean, knowing when, as much as, I've had couples where it's like, well, he's not religious and he's not, but he is. And I'm like, well, then tell me what is too much. Yeah. Ask, what type of God language speaks to the union? Yes. Not just you or just you, but to the union. What type of feeling does the union want? What does the union want? Yes. And so it's been beautiful to watch people kind of have that light bulb moment and say, you know what? I really don't want cousin such and such to read anything on my day. And I said, who's not going to read something on your day? Your cousin. because that's not what you want.
Yes.
And so practice now with communicating, getting creative, inquiring, seeking advice if and when you want it. That muscle can be worked in the planning of your wedding.
Yes.
And so now that you've worked it, now when you are now wed, you done already exercised that muscle to create boundaries, to live in joy, to get creative, to lean into what you want, and to communicate with one another about what the union deserves and needs. And so I always go back to my statement: how you plan your wedding can truly be a benchmark on how you live your life married.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. And I think weddings, if you've never planned a wedding, which if it's your first time getting married, you haven't. We lean a lot on the people around us. And sometimes that's good. And sometimes it becomes, well, I've never done this, so I'm just going to do whatever my mom wants. Right. And I try to push on that so much as much as possible. I said, I do believe in family traditions and cultural traditions. Of course, do all the things that you want to do, but don't do them only because everyone's already done it.
Exactly.
Don't do it only because so-and-so said you have to, or because they did it, you have to. No, it's what you want. And having these boundaries, what you're talking about now in the planning, finding a way to say that. I know family dynamics, they just, they like to come up in times like this where you're like,
they like to show face.
I'm trying to have a good time. I'm trying to plan my wedding. And this decides to come back up. And I don't know why that happens. I'm just like, there needs to be like a study or something on like why when someone's getting married, everyone else decides that they get an input or that they now have to do some big thing, right? There's a lot that can come up. There's so much. And families are complicated. We have trauma. We have very specific family dynamics. And so all of that to say, for whoever's listening, you're not the only one having to deal with this. Most all of us have or will deal with this type of situation. And yet you can do what you need to do for yourself and your partner.
Absolutely. And
create
your partner.
These boundaries.
Absolutely.
If you need help, ask for help. Ask Whitney, ask me, ask other vendors, ask us how we can help enforce some of these boundaries. And sometimes I just say, blame me, blame the planner. I'm like, tell them that my planner's not letting me bring 2 extra people. Sorry, you can't have a +1. Blame me. I don't care. I'll take it. But whatever you need to do to help set these boundaries now, like you're saying, because, well, then there's the next step. Oh, now you're going to buy your house. Okay. So is everyone going to have an input on your home? Is everyone going to have input on how you raise your child? Or if you have children, right? There's so many things that this leads into in the future. And I know that this sounds like that's a big task to try and take on as I'm planning a wedding. And yet this is actually the right time to start flexing that muscle as much as we can.
Muscle. Exactly. And I'm with you. I'll tell a couple in a heartbeat, blame me.
Yeah.
Tell them, the officiant said no. She said no. She's not going to do it. And okay.
Yeah.
Blame me. Just blame me if you need to. If you need a scapegoat, do that. But get what you want on the day that is yours. Get what you want on the day that's yours. And so that it would be like my final word to couples is, there are people out here who will hold you in a space that affirms not only your identities, its intersections, your joys, your sorrows. There's somebody out here that's got your back, that takes joy in finding the creative way to make life happen. And in our context, make your wedding what you want. And just like a really quick story, I had a couple who they saw that there was the pouring of the sand ceremony, where you take 2 individual containers of sand and you pour them in. And they were like, well, we don't like sand, but we like that idea. And we had a brainstorming session. And what they eventually did was they liked Arnold Palmer. So one was tea.
Oh my God.
And the other was lemonade. And they poured it together. So now they have an anniversary drink.
Oh, I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry. I'm such a sap. I'm in the right field because all of these things. Sorry, keep going.
But that was what I mean by taking the reins. Like, it was suggested to do a sand ceremony. Okay, but we really don't vibe with that. Like, we don't want it. Oh, well, what do you want? What do you like? And so we started talking about their likes and dislikes. And they were like, oh, yeah. And our first date, we had Arnold Palmer's. And I was like, I'll make it one of those. And I'm like, oh, we could do that? You can do whatever you want on your day.
Whatever you want.
And I think that's another cue for couples is you can do whatever you want on your day. We can morph and get creative with things. I've had people who made a rosé, like they were like, I'm white wine, you're red wine. And now we've got another anniversary drink. Like, we can make it happen. We can do this thing. I remember one couple was like, well, we could take shots. I said, sure. But whatever it is that makes you show up on your day, put that down.
I love that. I love it. Well, Whittney, you are incredible as a human and in every of the hats that you wear. Like, seriously, you're awesome. The work you do is awesome. I'm always in awe of your posts and all of the love that you pour into the work you do. And I see it and I get it, because I think there are definitely a lot of us who are in this business because we just love people, right? At the core of our beings, we love people. And we want to give them a really good day. And so thank you so much for all of the wisdom that you've given us, all the gems that you have dropped. We have been blessed by it. And I really hope people go back. And if you weren't already taking notes, do go back, because there's so many things that you can pull from this and say, oh, I'm going to try that. Oh, I'm going to talk to my partner about this thing. And hopefully y'all are listening together to this. Yeah. But really, I hope that this is a conversation starter for the couple, for those of you listening, that you can do whatever you want. You have permission. If you need the permission, we're giving you the permission.
You've got permission.
Do it. There we go. The minister has spoken. Like, you have permission.
Mic drop.
Yes.
The permission has been granted.
Done. Granted. So do it. Find the right people to do this with. And Whittney, I know you are definitely one of those people. So how can those listening or those who have found us through this podcast method, how do they reach out to you? How can they, at the very least, follow and say thank you, or if there's something that sparked in them from this conversation, how do they find you?
Absolutely. So I'm very active on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is revido_officiating.
Awesome.
And you can find me on my website at www.revidoofficiating. I'm spell it all the way out.com. Awesome. And you can connect with me there. I'm on Instagram. You can DM me, like a post. I'm very accessible. I love to hear from my couples, future couples, or just people out here who are just saying, oh, what you got going on?
Yeah.
I have it all. Yes. So please stop by. I would love to have a conversation or connect with you however we do. But yes, I am Reverend Whittney Ijanaten with Revido Officiating, and I can't wait to just see what happens.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Go follow her. We will add her Instagram, her website, all of that in the information section here in the podcast. But thank you again, seriously, for your time and everything you bring to this field that we obviously love so much. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everyone. We will see you all again, or you'll hear us again soon. Okay, friends, ya se terminó. That's it. Thank you so much for joining us today. We can be BFFs on Facebook and Insta at JJ the Wedding Planner Co. And did you know that you can directly schedule a call with me? It's true. Check out the link in the show notes to pick a time. And if you're not sure if having a wedding planner is right for you, then this is the time to ask me those questions. So check out that link to set up your time one-on-one with me. And before you go, please don't forget to give us a 5-star review on today's episode and tell us what you are loving so far. Thank you so much. Los quiero. Adios.